Hello, hello. Happy freaking Friday. Yeah. I almost forget that I had this done. So this is very related to all of like the AGA palette expansion stuff that I started this channel talking about. Because one of the biggest potential contributors to uh like dental arch and facial development that is like deficient, I guess, um, is not having proper like tongue habits, because over time muscular habits affect or can affect how bones form. Obviously not in every case, like there's a very, very strong genetic component to how our skeletons are built, obviously. Um, but especially like in the very early years, like in infancy and toddlerhood and everything, um, like the tongue and the other muscles of the face are very important, have a very important influence on how the mouth and face develop. And one thing that can happen in babies and, you know, potentially also adults, because those babies grow up, is that you could have a tongue tie, which basically just means that the tongue has limited range of motion due to like having a frenulum like underneath it that is like too short or too attached or whatever. Like tongues are weird. There's not like a super stark cutoff. Like there can be some gray area, but it's luckily becoming a lot more common to check babies for tongue tie, because having a tongue tie can really affect how well they can breastfeed, which can then affect the muscular habits with their tongue and face that they learn, which can potentially influence development of like a healthy wide dental arch. So in thinking about my own case of having a lot of crowding with my teeth when I was young, and eventually needing 2 permanent teeth extracted, and you know, all the downstream effects of that, I thought it would like tongue stuff is very very integrated into the whole like AGA process. And actually my AGA dentist, like as part of the AGA treatment while I was going through the expansion, he gave me like sheets of tongue exercises that I had to do, because like you can change the orientation of your teeth and whatever using orthodontic devices, but really you need to also change muscular habits of your tongue in order to optimally maintain those results. And I must admit that I have never been very good at consistently doing the tongue exercises. I kind of hate them. But I did pay a lot of money to like a private myofunctional therapist, and worked with her for maybe like 6 months or something. And I also did some, is it called craniosacral therapy? I think it is. Craniosacral therapy. Craniosacral therapy. Cranium, sacrum. Yeah. I did that for a few sessions. That was very interesting. It's like it's a version of body work where you kind of lay on a table and the therapist like will touch your head and touch like other parts of your body and almost like sense. It seems like she's like sensing where tension is and working with it somehow. It's not really like a massage. There can be some like massage like stuff involved, but she'll also just like move different parts of your body around. I don't know. It was really interesting, but the woman I went to was, oh, she was actually recommended by my myofunctional therapist because she works a lot with people before and after they get tongue tie releases, because and this is one of those realms where like there's probably a little bit of like pseudoscience mixed in, but like tongue function is genuinely very important to like surprisingly almost everything in the body. And like when you think about fascia, like the sort of fibrous coating over all of your muscles, all of your fascia is like connected to each other from like your tongue all the way down to your feet. So yeah, this craniosacral therapist was like very, very passionate about like working with the tongue and making sure that if somebody's getting a tongue tie release, they are like muscularly and fascially in the optimal state to get that done and then like rehabilitated properly after. So anyway, I sort of like, I definitely had this like sort of like vague hope that maybe having like some kind of tongue tie or limited tongue mobility was like the root cause of all of my problems, and that if I got this tongue tie release, everything would be better, like magically. I was definitely holding out hope for that. And that was really the motivating factor for me to go through all of this, like myofunctional therapy and stuff. Because like I said, I truly hated it. It was really hard for me, and still is hard for me. But they really like they really gate kept the actual tongue tie release procedure, which I think is good. It's good. Like, I don't know, you don't just want to go in there and like snip and then like not have really worked on the habits and the muscular patterns. So yeah, I did all that, and then I drove 3 hours away to go get the actual tongue tie release procedure. And most of them will literally just like laser under your tongue, which I am led to believe by the experts is not optimal, because it's just like very crude. And at least for me, I didn't have like an obvious tongue tie. It seemed like I had limited range of motion for my tongue, but it wasn't like sort of like a thin frenulum like attached that could just be like lasered off and then all of a sudden my tongue can like move everywhere. It was more like, as the guy who did my tongue tie release told me, he said that a lot of my like attachments were like really far back in the muscle, and yeah, it was just like more of an edge case. Like I could have easily lived the rest of my life without having that procedure done, but it was worth a shot, and I still think it was worth a shot. So anyway, the place that I went does what they call like a functional tongue tie release. So essentially they have the patient like cave their tongue, which is like, let's see if I can do it. So you kind of like stick your tongue to the roof of your mouth and open. It's like a very high suction thing, tongue cave. If you can't do it, you should learn how to, because it's a good like general basic tongue stretch, tongue strengthening thing. And if you don't know how to do it, like if you can make the click sound with your tongue, like making a cave is just like you're starting to make the click sound, but you don't release the suction to make the click. You just keep the suction. Yeah, so during the tongue tie release, the patient, me in this case, makes a cave, fully awake, fully aware, makes a cave, and they just go in and like snip, 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 and then they'll give you a break, and then they'll have you cave again and snip, 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 because they want to see how the cuts they're making are actually affecting everything in a functional context. Obviously they numb you, but I gotta say, the numbing shots wore off for me so quickly. Like they had to give me more shots at least like 2 different times during the procedure, and it wasn't a super long procedure. It was probably less than half an hour. I was incredibly proud of myself because I'm a naturally pretty squeamish person, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I really would have had a hard time with for most of my life. But I really spent the whole 3 hours driving there like coaching myself up, and was pretty proud of myself, very proud of myself. And honestly, a really great experience. Like, really liked the doctor, really liked all the staff. It was great. The drive home, the 3 hours drive home after, was horrendous. I was in so much pain. The numbing did not last at all, and maxing out my Tylenol dose, like, didn't touch it. I was just like, and like, you know, after they do stuff in your mouth, you kind of like naturally produce a lot of like saliva and whatever, and there's like blood and gauze and whatever and saliva, so you'll get this like sort of reflex to swallow, and every time I would involuntarily swallow, it just like excruciating pain because it's making my tongue move, which has just been all cut up. So this is so gross. Why am I sharing this with the internet? I would like, I was trying to like spit out my spit instead of, so that my tongue wouldn't try to swallow, so that I wouldn't be in as much pain. So I'm just like driving down the highway like 3 hours to get home, like drooling and wincing and moaning, and it was awful. That was really bad. And just like in general, the recovery is rough. I don't know if this is just me. This is probably not just me. But like anytime there's something healing in my mouth, it doesn't matter if the doctor's like, oh yeah, you can drink milkshakes or eat soft foods or whatever. Like, the thought of any food substance coming into contact with like stitches or any kind of wound is just like horrifying to me. So I basically ate only what was necessary to survive for the first few days, which was mostly just like protein drinks through a straw to really minimize like contact with my like raw healing tongue area. So yeah, recovery was rough, but whatever, that's fine. And as far as like noticing any effects from the tongue tie release, I do remember like walking out of the office right after having it done and feeling very like free in this whole region, like in like the front of my neck and like collarbone area, feeling just like, I don't know, I often have tension in this area. I find myself like stretching like that a lot. And this easily could have been placebo effect. Easily could have been. I have no way of proving one way or the other. Subjectively, I noticed feeling a lot less tight across here. That effect, real or fake, has not been sustained. I now am back to like regularly feeling tight across here. So that's kind of moot, I would say, unless I just like adapted to a higher baseline or something. I don't know. As far as like general, like I okay, the things I was most interested in were whether this would help me more easily maintain good resting tongue posture, and I would say that it did not. The other thing I was interested in is whether I might notice less like clenching and grinding at night, which I did not. So I would say that overall, didn't really notice a whole lot from the tongue tie release. My tongue does look different. Maybe someday I'll show before and afters. Yeah, if people care about that, I can post that sometime. But as far as like functionally and practically, I probably could have done without it, but it also didn't like harm me in any way. Very much was worth trying, I think. And it's also definitely possible that I just have not maxed out my potential upside from this procedure because I haven't been good about doing my tongue exercises. So I think that's all I have to say about that. If anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.